Mary.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining our talk today. We're here to talk about the value of why the value of bringing in digital automation and the value of wireless technologies overall to support those missions. I'll open the session by introducing myself. I'm actually semi-retired at the moment, but I'm still staying involved with so many things, one being workforce education through my work at the International Academy of Automation Engineering, and with support of the integration, the intersection of academic and industry partners through my work as the academic chair liaison on the Digital Twin Consortium group, and also my work with the Intel Manufacturing IoT Council, which I still lead as Intel Emeritus, moving from there to my most recent assignment as the executive director at the Connected Systems Institute at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. That opportunity was a capstone to my career of supporting manufacturing for the last 35 years in technology, always focused on solutions targeted at optimizing maintenance operations, building in efficiency, reliability, and safety into the fabric of the technology solutions being deployed on the factory floor. I started out my career with IBM as in sales originally, but eventually reaching to the assignment of the worldwide industry leader for manufacturing. That opportunity gave me lots of exposure to customers all around the world who are involved in implementing technologies that address machine functions, operations, and the accountability that documenting those processes and the results of that work could bring to the optimization and value creation that came from managing it more effectively. From that time, I moved over to Intel at invitation to also build their manufacturing industry solutions group, incorporating the most advanced technology applied to very advanced manufacturing use cases. And in that role, I had lots of opportunity to experiment with research and development, and applying that advanced technology was very interesting. And in that role, I had the opportunity to work with lots of customers who were struggling with decisions about where to apply technology, because there's lots of noise in the market. There's lots of exciting things going on, lots of shiny objects that could be chased. But the question became, where do I apply it? How do I apply that to deliver the most value to my organization? And so with that history, I am now enjoying a time where I can be involved with lots of different projects and people, like the colleagues I share the screen with now. And I know that many of them, all of them, have a similar history, similar experiences. And I would like to ask Joan, her experiences and from Siemens' perspective of you're interacting with different manufacturing organizations and how they
Mary,
value.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said there's loads of technologies available, and that's exactly what I don't do. And I think that's a really important thing to recognize. My colleague Sarah Blacksmith was on earlier on today, and I know she talks, absolutely brilliantly about what we do in Siemens from an automation, manufacturing, digitalization perspective. But what's really interesting in terms of my role in Siemens is, as digitalization lead, I'm far more concerned about the strategy and the why of people moving to digitalization than the what they do to get there, because digitalization is not a destination. No one is going to get any prizes for being the most digitalized version of an organization that is selling a product or service that people don't want anymore. So the first question every business needs to ask themselves is, what is your market going to look like 10 years from now? And then ask yourself, what is your role going to be in that marketplace? And then ask yourselves, what do I need to start doing now to build a roadmap to get me to that end destination of being relevant in a market 10 years from now? So that's my first question I always ask for businesses. And it's so easy to get lost in the technology, in the maze of whether or not you should be digital twinning or artificially intelligent or roboticizing or automating or doing all your data analytics and taking data and into information to knowledge and to wisdom. And these are really important things to do, and they are hugely beneficial as long as you know where you're going. So that why and the purpose of this session is so critical to me in the context of everything that's going to be discussed later, is that that I think it was Alex Osterwelder, he described the guy who did Lean Canvas, the guru. He has a very professional way of describing it. I have the same three, but slightly more my own words. But he says there's three types of digitalization. There is digitalization for efficiency. There is digitalization for sustaining your relevance in a marketplace, it's kind of innovation. And then there is digitalization for disruption. The way I describe it is digitalization that are faster horses projects. You ask the market what they wanted, they set a faster horse. And that's when people digitalize and replicate what they're currently doing, but they do it much faster, much more efficiently. They've got a faster horse. And then there's the people who innovate and stay apace with the technology and are developing products and services that are more at pace with the technology. And they're the car version. And I always say disruption is based on this idea that the faster horse and the car are to get you from A to B as quickly as possible. Disruption is asking yourself, why are you going to B at all? Why are you making that journey? Disruption is using the technology and leveraging that to really rethink the value proposition that you have for your customer relative to that market 10 years from now. So they're the big questions. I think that if you spend the time in really challenging yourself and your organization on those questions, your return on investment on your digitalization strategy will be infinitely more, because you are completely aligning it and investing in the technologies and the time that gets you to a sustainable business, as in market sustainability as well as environmental sustainability. I don't count anything as progress unless it is environmentally sustainable. That's my underlying baseline for absolutely everything. If it's not environmentally sustainable, it is not innovation, it is not progress. So that's kind of the perspective that I am bringing to this conversation between the three of us, but also the kind of conversation that I wanted to bring to this broader conference, where we talk about the backbone of innovation and digital transformation. For me, it's that big why. Why is your business doing this? What are you trying to achieve? Now, Conrad, I know you have your own perspectives on that too, so I'm going to stop talking.
Well, I do, and maybe I'm a little more on the technology side, Joan. So I'm Conrad Leyva, VP of Ecosystem and Workforce Development at SESME, the National Institute created to accelerate smart manufacturing technology adoption in the U.S. We have an active portfolio of over 50 co-funded projects working on developing technology, applications, and education that help reduce the cost and increase access to smart manufacturing methods, with the goal of increasing manufacturing productivity in the U.S. I am an industrial engineer with over 30 years of experience in manufacturing and manufacturing systems, which always involves justifying the business investment. So, Joan, if you're looking at the plan as a workhorse, I have a faster horse for you.
Are you seeing trends, Conrad? What are you seeing commentary coming from the projects and the members that you're working with?
Yeah, I'm seeing great trends. I mean, we've been working in smart manufacturing for many years. I mean, it started back in 2010 or something like that. And but what we are moving from a period of early adopters and to really crossing the chasm with a lot of this technology. which includes a lot of leveraging wireless. And I just heard one of the panelists said earlier that they were also seeing a move from people just piloting and trying out technology, moving to more of looking at technology as part of their strategic plan. So I think that is a shift that I'm seeing more of in industry, at least with the larger manufacturers. What we want to try to do is get that shift to happen with small and medium manufacturers also.
I think that differentiation, Conrad, between small and medium and larger organization is really interesting. And I would see that a lot with Siemens. You know, we obviously work with a lot of, I mean, we're a manufacturer ourselves first and foremost, and a very large manufacturer at that, but obviously we deal with, you know, huge players in big sectors, and they can, they tend to be able, or they have the capacity to do a lot of proof of concept and to get real efficiency gains. So if you think about digitalization for efficiency and automation, they're going to make a return on investment because they've got the economies of scale to do it. Smaller business might be more inclined to do some of the more innovative and disruptive more quickly. First of all, they don't have to offset it against huge legacy systems that they have to roll out across like 20 plants around the world, but also because they probably can make that marketplace leap more efficiently or more quickly in some cases. That is, that, to use the layman's term of agile, as opposed to the technology term of agile. That is the advantages of being smaller. And of course, large businesses are somewhat literally financially invested in market status quo, because of course it preserves their dominance. And there's an awful lot of really cool sweet spot stuff happening with small to medium sized businesses and pesky little startups that come along and disrupt all of our lives. And I think there's a lot to be said for large organizations collaborating with scaling businesses. And I think there's huge opportunities to be seen there. And Mary, obviously you've worked a lot with, obviously you mentioned IBM and Intel, you'd have seen some of this over the years yourself.
Quite a bit, actually. The scaling especially, Joan, it was really not unusual for an organization to incubate a core capability within their organization, automate it for disruption, and then break that company off as an independent service, right? So taking that core capability and actually productizing it to create a new value stream for the organization, just built on the internal core capabilities of the people on staff. It was, that growth was amazing. But I do think that you both bring up really good observations about the long tail of this adoption curve, right? We have the rabbits out ahead, and maybe there's pockets within those organizations that are doing some really innovative things, and we see a long stream of startups and organizations in between, right, that are serving the market. Conrad, can you speak to some of these projects that you're seeing, specifically the use cases that are emerging as key focus areas for these?
Yeah, yes, Mary. A lot of the early success and has been around productivity, and a lot of companies focus on internal productivity, cost efficiency. We have some great examples in high energy intensive industries of reducing cost, of energy and cement, chemical, food manufacturing, with equipment, a lot of ovens, a lot of equipment that take a lot of energy. But it's really nice that we've also seen now, when you start looking more strategically at benefits like speed, agility, ability to change your product mix quickly, ability to create stronger partnerships and innovate, like your example, Mary, there, you were grabbing something that some core new excellence with data and spawning it into a whole new business model. We're seeing more of that, and I think I love looking and making reference to the examples of the lighthouses that have been documented by McKinsey and the World Economic Forum. They're a great source of inspiration, I think, for looking at results and that companies are obtaining.
I think I'm glad Conrad mentioned that the lighthouse projects there. We have our own site in Hamburg in Germany is one of the World Economic Forum lighthouse sites, and I've done a few virtual tours of that recently with customers, and it's really exciting to watch what's happening in organizations like that, and that is allowing for that kind of innovation in the automation space, and much more frictionless processing. And then it's the value of that data. And I loved exactly, Conrad, as you said, what Mary said about developing new areas of expertise and centers of excellence in organizations and allowing them to spin up and disrupt. And I think part of it too is it's a brilliant insurance for themselves in terms of their long-term, what's your market going to look like 10 years from now? I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to an agri-food business, and they wanted to solve an age-old problem of a virus that impacts their crop. And I remember thinking, what if we could use data to collect all this and indicate when there was going to be a greater likelihood of this happening? And then I thought, who really should be doing this is the chemical industry, because the chemical industry are not really in the virus disease killing business. They're actually in the disease control business. And there's two ways of controlling it. Yes, you can control disease with pesticides, or you can control disease with data and actually more information and more knowledge and better decision making. So on that basis, given what's the market going to look like for pesticides in 10 years time, these are the kind of data-driven disruptions that those organizations can be doing. And then what they're running then is this parallel strategy. They've got this super highly efficient, highly automated traditional business that's doing that digitalization for efficiency, faster horses stuff. And then in parallel, they can be taking and leveraging all the market data that they have on those diseases and how they work and spin up this entirely different, disruptive, data-driven application service technology business. And I just find that so exciting, but it goes back to the why of all of it. Why are you doing this? What's your vision for 10 years from now?
Yeah, and I just want to put this into perspective, right? Because we have Joan sharing these visions of these super advanced, very cool and sustainably and really important to our world solutions. Conrad, you've highlighted a community of people that are experimenting and growing and maybe not starting with the big things, maybe they're starting smaller. So why don't we talk a little bit for the benefit of the audience of, what are some of the challenges that organizations have in moving up the spectrum in terms of growth? Why don't we start with you, Joan? What's your experience been, and how do you bring communities along this technology adoption journey?
Oh, Mary, it's such a spot on super question. I was listening to Finn Goulding speak a while ago. He's a brilliant CIO, number of organizations, and he always talks about digital transformation happening at a cellular level in organizations, almost in the DNA. So while I talk big picture and vision of what they could be doing, you're right, those changes happen at a micro level in organizations. And it's to make those technology changes really sticky. And you cannot do that without people, Mary. That's the sweet spot here, because the technology is interesting. And it's like I was having a conversation with somebody today about their roadmap. And we're going, okay, so we can give you a roadmap and the technology is the vehicle that will get you there, but it's not a self-driving vehicle. It needs people in the organization to go on that journey. One of them might be the champion or the pilot for that, the champion for that project who's going to drive the vehicle forward, but it needs everybody at all those pit stops and all those wheel changes. You can see Siemens do a lot with Formula One racing with these analogies of mine. But yeah, it's like, it's all of the people in it and finding and developing technology and adopting technology that is allowing people to grow sustainable careers, that is allowing people, that we capture and value the tacit knowledge that is held at that cellular level in organizations. And the technology, as I say, really, really important in delivering those efficiencies, but not happening without a full change management program with people in those organizations and bringing you with that. And part of it comes down to little things, just like particularly in industrial automation and what we do, as I say, in industry versus the user experience. The user experience has always been really good for personal B2C type tech. And then we got much better about the user experience about enterprise solutions for businesses. And it seems like we were not as careful historically at developing a really good user experience for OT as we have done for IT. And I think the OT convergence with IT is really pushing those boundaries now and driving better user experience solutions for the OT environment. And I think that would be a really intrinsic part of making some of that stickiness that we need. I see Conrad is nodding, so I mustn't be too far wrong.
No, definitely. I mean, two more important challenges that we've seen, and we've surveyed these, and lack of a strategy connected to technology roadmap is one. The complexity and cost of integration has been another. Implementation and integration of new technology has been another challenge. But you mentioned something very important when you said it's not a self-driving strategy, right? And I look at that as the need for education. So the workforce, that even the champions of innovation, right, need to keep up with all the technology changes and know all the options that are available and how practical they've become. So something we've been very focused at Sesame is establishing regional innovation centers where we can demonstrate the technology and bring manufacturers to see firsthand a lot of that integrated technology in person. And because for a lot of manufacturers, seeing is believing, right? They need to see it in action.
It is, but it's also really important for the workforce. Right? Because you can't push a rope, right? So you mentioned a couple of really important things there, Conrad and Joan. First of all, connecting the solution that you're trying to design to the aim of the organization, strategically aligning to the direction of where the enterprise is going is absolutely key. Because if you don't have the fuel of the support from leadership, as well as that unified corporate messaging that happens with all vision statements and core value statements, if it's not woven in, it can't become part of the DNA of the organization. And ultimately, that's where we need to go if anyone wants to travel that journey and become the rabbit, right? You need to build this culture of continuous learning and acceptance and acceptance of soft returns, soft benefits, not just the hard dollars. Who wants to comment on soft benefits? Joan?
Oh, I mean, I'd really love to. It's funny. I was chairing a panel last week on for data scientists, and it was all around skills, for our digital future. And 75% of businesses, I think, surveyed in Ireland were saying that they're all in this massive recruitment drive but cannot find people. And we were talking about how we solve those problems internally in organizations, so the supply and the demand. So there's external things going on through universities and PhD programs and all of that. And that's great, and it's helping with supply, but we have a responsibility within our own organizations to cultivate and develop our own supply within and allowing people to grow. And I think that's when I talked about sustainable careers. That's really what I meant, is that technology can allow us. So rather than getting pushback from employees going, oh my God, I don't want to do this, it's like building it into a learning organization so they can see with that growth mindset how that by by embracing this technology, not only am I serving and aligned with the growth needs of the organization, it's aligning to my own personal growth needs and the sustainability of my career. And that what we're saying is that there is real value in your tacit knowledge, and we're not trying to program that out of the organization. What we're trying to do is build a more wise organization, not just data driven, but when we take it, as I say, from data to information to knowledge and wisdom. And I have this theory that the more technology we put into organizations, the more human those organizations will become. I'm calling it post-dataism, and it's the idea that if we roboticize everything that's roboticizable and automate everything that's automatable and algorithmically program all the things that are programmable, then the only thing left for humans to do is that which is truly human. And the only thing that is truly human is our intention, our purpose, our creativity, our ability to make decisions that are beyond the data, and learning how, you know, the best leaders in battle are not the ones who need all the facts. We need people who can make decisions still without all of the data, because data is true for what is happening today and what happened yesterday, but there are no data points for the future. There are only models for that. So there will always be a role for people in organizations, but what there won't be is a role for people who do not want to engage with technology at all. We are working in, and that's why it's post-datism. It's not anti-data, it's post-datism. Data is amazing, it's wonderful, automation, all of that, but we need to have fulfilling roles for people. And that is on the knowledge and wisdom part. And I think that enriches people's career rather than diminishes it.
You know,
that was a long answer, sorry.
Oh, good.
I mean, it's great. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about, Joan, I mean, I would qualify as the importance of culture in that the why we're doing these investments in technologies, why they're important to the business, needs to be understood by the whole company and by the workforce, because culture, or without the culture that embraces digital, that embraces connectivity, higher levels of collaboration, higher levels of transparency. I mean, is the organization ready to be that transparent and know everything that's happening on your shop floor? That's just as important. And I always think of it as part of education, but it might not be clear that is part of educating and the change management process needed to implement. But so the why is important for the business, the management to understand the why, but it's important for the whole organization to understand why this is important for the business, for the future of the company, but for the future of yourselves. And these are skills that should be very transferable.
And I think organizations really need to be careful about who writes that why statement. You know, in our work at the IAAE, in talking with organizations that are implementing learning methodologies within their enterprises, one of the surprising findings to me was that the big benefit that they reported out was the ability to frame a corporate common language first, before any vendors come in and shape it. And secondly, to build the vision of how technology should be designed to meet the mission of the enterprise before any vendors come in to shape that view, which I thought was really refreshing, because once you set that bar, then anything else, you have all these great, passionate, excited, young people who want to bring in technology. They expect it. Now you're competing with another organization for workers, and you want to have the best technology, but then all of these folks are out there examining new ideas against the framework of what you created as the show.
Mary, I think that is a gem of a point. And because, it's something, kind of a question that came up today with me in a meeting earlier on, and we were, organization customers will ask, well, what's possible? And I'm going, well, with technology, anything is possible, but you need to know who you want to be. And that's the heart of real leadership. And before you bring in anyone from the outside, the best that we can do, or any consultant can do, and I'm talking from the perspective of Siemens Consulting, Siemens Advanta or PA, rather than, the part you'll hear about later on, which is very, Siemens is enormous, but the part that is consulting is, we're not there to dazzle you with tech. We can do those solutions, but you need to know who you are and who you want to be. And you alone, your organization, have to work that out in a way yourselves, or kind of have a sense of what your own ambition is for those organizations. And that for me is that core of leadership, and that bit about wisdom. So yeah, I think that's a great point, Mary, for anybody, organizations who are listening and trying to work out what their digitalization strategy is. Any number of us can help with the road mapping of that. But there is that bit about, before you bring in anyone else to try and fill in those gaps, there's a bit of you that has to go into that conversation being very clear about what your own North Star, what you want that to be.
I want to ask Mary a question.
Okay.
Mary, you worked with IBM, Intel, and so we are talking about being very strategic here, all this talk, but what do you do when you get approached and somebody, a manufacturer, really wants you to go after a very specific problem? We get approached, especially by small manufacturers a lot of times, and they're really focused. I got this issue right now, and I want that solved. And but I'm sure you've seen where what the manufacturer really needed maybe was not what they were asking for at the beginning. What examples do you have of that?
I have a great one. Thanks for asking, Conrad. This one came to mind right away. This was an automotive, and I can't tell you the country because then that wouldn't be good. And we were called in to address inventory management challenges, right? Stockouts cause problems for maintenance or plant shutdown situations. There's all kinds of taxation issues, maintenance costs of maintaining things on the shelf, right? So we were brought in to solve that problem. And in doing the discovery interviews, I remember talking with the shop leader, and he was so proud of the fact that they were able to cull $10 million worth of inventory each year out of there, which is not it's a smaller percentage, right? For a small company, that would be a lot, but for this, it wasn't. But my question was, well, why do you have that amount every year? I mean, once you go through the main clean, you would think that we can forecast now. We know what you're going to need. You can build out you have the associations, and we discovered that the procurement process was allowing for vendors to negotiate reliability packages for their equipment that involved bringing in an additional $2 million of inventory in order to guarantee that kind of uptime, right? So the inventory problem was really caused by inappropriate negotiation strategies, right? And then further, we could take it further by saying, okay, well, now build your standard book of inventory. You shouldn't have 5 different kinds of 100 horsepower pumps on your shelf, maybe 2 or 3. And if there's a new one that comes up, then ask for the justification, right? So prevent it from coming in the first place. So that's a great example right there, Conrad.
I think it's a challenge, isn't it, when a customer says, we want you to solve this problem, and you've got to stay within the parameters of here to solve the problem. The problem is very rarely within the parameters that they've set, because this is ecosystems, this is value streams, all of it is interconnected, and very rarely is the problem, the outcome of the problem is usually much farther up or downstream. And I think that implies within organizations, and also as we do the wicked problem solving of the world, it's just going to all take more. And this is where data is so great, because we now have that traceability, that you can pull a thread of data. You could end up anywhere, but you will have that so much better understanding. And that's the real value, I suppose, of this automation, of of digitalization is giving us that infrastructure and architecture there so that when you pull the thread, you know where you're going to end up, and you know if it's been contaminated some way along the way. But it's just that visibility and understanding is just incredible.
You know, and it stresses the importance of bringing stakeholders together in this process from different departments, different areas, and with different perspectives, because you're going to learn a lot about your organization and about, you know, open your mind a little more about where other problems might be in the organization, or solutions or opportunities. So getting more, I mean, in this highly connected future, or you know, present, it should be, but that's where it needs to be. We need to really bring the organization closer, have more open door meetings, have more conversations within our organization.
Well, that's, I guess, one question we're having from the group here is, you know, what are some techniques that leadership can use to engage with the shop floor? You know, how do you get that information right at the edge to incorporate into your strategic decisions? One suggestion from Joan. We only have a couple minutes left.
I'm all for adopting a really strong design thinking ethos in everything that you do. And that is spending all that time on that empathy phase and involving as many participants as possible in really feeling their pain points. So understanding how this is going to solve a problem for you, and you are part of designing your own solution. And I think that's really powerful.
Totally. Conrad, how about you?
I think doing a formal, so at SESME, we've been working on establishing a formal structure for internal assessment of business practices, that and having that discipline of looking at broadly at least once a year in your organization. I think it is in bringing in those stakeholders together. I think is a great practice, and you know, go beyond the routine of continuous improvement that could be yielding great results, but doing a more strategic view once a year, something I think can really open up to new opportunities.
I'll offer one final tip. Bring the naysayer onto the project team. Bring the guy who says it's not going to work onto the project team and find out why he thinks it's not going to work. And once you get his respect and buy-in, everyone else will follow. So, hey, thanks for everyone. Manon, I think, Jeff, are we finishing up the session?